We're less than 24 hours away from an election that will not only define the future of Trump's presidency, but perhaps the entire country's political landscape for years to come. To talk about this, I'm joined by Academy Award-winning filmmaker Michael Moore, whose latest documentary is Fahrenheit 11/9. Michael, your thoughts tonight?
My thoughts are these. I'm assuming everybody watching this votes. So good on you for doing that. But tomorrow we're not going to win with just each of us voting. Everybody has to take 5 people to the polls or call 10 others. Or if you can, take the day off. Call in sick. Blame it on me on Wednesday. I mean, whatever. But I'm very serious about this, that everybody has to be in the game tomorrow all day long. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be making calls to people that live in my congressional district, offering rides, doing whatever we can do. I'll mow their lawn this summer. I'll shovel snow this winter, whatever it takes. You have to get other people. You can't just rely on you coming. And I've said this before, don't rely on the polls. I see the big Steve Kornacki board over there. I'm really tempted actually just to jump out of the chair and go touch it, but I'm not going to.
Don't touch the board, Michael. We talked about this. No one touches the board.
I have learned my lesson from the one time it went. Oh, yeah, we won't talk about that. But no, but I'm serious about this. That you have to understand. The New York Times, they're very honest lately about how they do their polling. Last week in the Texas Senate race, they polled 51,000 Texans to see how they would vote. Only 800 of them responded. They polled 7,200 young adults between 18 and 29. Only 66 young adults responded to the poll. So we know nothing. Tomorrow, this could be a historic crushing of the Republican Party and Donald Trump, or the Republicans could win and hold the House by 1 seat. 1 seat.
One place I want to zoom in on something here, because one of the places that there was the biggest polling miss in 2016 were the Midwestern states, right? So if you look at Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin, right?
Yes.
And something interesting has happened this year. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. So those were all states that Trump carried. This year, you've got incumbent Democratic senators in each of those states: Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. And 2 years ago, people thought, man, they're in trouble, right? This is Donald Trump won these states. All 4 of those incumbent senators look to be doing pretty well in the polling averages. What do you make of that?
Yes, I know for a fact that each of the 4 of them went to bed early tonight. That's how relaxed they are. But we shouldn't be. Here's what I make of it. I think that what's going to happen in Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania tomorrow is essentially what happened 2 years ago with Trump. Things haven't gotten better in the Rust Belt. Things are still pretty bad. You were there. You've been there more than once. The way that they used Trump as a Molotov cocktail in those states to blow up the system that had hurt them and not made their lives better, I expect them to do the same thing tomorrow, except in reverse fashion.
Interesting.
Things haven't gotten better in the last 2 years under Trump. They know what that tax cut really was, and they haven't seen any of the results of it. They know that their life is not better, and I think for the same reason, because they want change and they're going to keep throwing that Molotov until they get it. And that's I think what may happen in those states. We may end up with 4 Democratic governors in those 4 states tomorrow. And I hope, at least what I've seen in my state, in Michigan, there's at least 2 or 3 House seats that have a good chance of being flipped, maybe more. Because, well, what Rebecca was just saying to you, I do believe the possibility of an army, an avalanche of women and young people showing up to vote is going to be something that perhaps we've never seen before. It's very possible that this is going to happen. Here's the other thing that people in Michigan are doing to get out the Democratic vote, and the Republicans did it so well back in 2004 when they had like 14 states make it constitutionally illegal to marry someone of your own gender, and that really got out the vote for Bush. We have on our ballot tomorrow in Michigan 2 proposals. One, to legalize marijuana, recreational marijuana, and number 2, to outlaw gerrymandering and to change all the voting laws to make it easier for people to vote, same-day registration, et cetera, et cetera. These two ballot proposals are going to bring out a lot of young people. They're going to bring out a lot of women. They're going to bring out a lot of people of color. They're going to bring out essentially what is the majority of the state of Michigan. Women, young people, and people of color make up about 65 to 68% of the state. So, you know, we don't know as we sit here, but I am feeling, you know, better than I did 2 years ago on this night.
You know, I've been covering politics my entire adult life since I was 22, 23, and I've seen
Which
only
was like,
two
what,
other
3
elections.
years ago?
I've seen only two other elections, at least in the sort of broad center left and the Democratic Party progressive coalition, that I saw mobilization like this. 2004 election,
yes,
against Bush, in which just everyone in a certain kind of sector of folks that were very politically engaged were doing things like knocking on doors, and 2008 with Barack Obama. I have not seen, just anecdotally, in the worlds of people that are fairly tuned in but not really, anything like the mobilization that I've just seen anecdotally out there and as a reporter in the 10 years since Obama was elected.
That is correct. That is correct. Just the fact that in Tennessee alone, there was a 700% increase in the early voting amongst young voters between the ages of 18 and 35. 700% increase, 400 and some percent in Texas, 400 and some percent increase in Georgia. Yes, this all could portend well, but the Democrats are professionals at losing elections that they win or should have won. And we are up against Republican parties in many of these states that have so worked overtime to suppress the vote that it's something that we have to take into account here. That's why you can vote tomorrow, but you've got to bring 5 other people with you, or you've got to call 10 people or call 20 people. Make a party out of it. Make a nice lunchtime hour out of it. Have a viewing party tomorrow night, and you only get in if you've got an I voted sticker. I mean, just encouraging people to make this a good thing, and tell people you don't want to miss out on this historic day. It could be a historic day.
One thing we know from some of the political science literature on this is that peer pressure, social pressure, talking to people about voting is actually the most effective ways to turn people out to vote if they know that people they know on their block or people they're friends with are voting. And the other thing I would say, and I know you have done this in my life before being a journalist, it's really interesting and it's a great civic education, whatever your politics are and whatever party you support, to go knock on doors and talk to people and be around other people who are involved, particularly on election day when you're just sitting around waiting otherwise. Yes. On the off chance you can get away from work.
People should just seriously, yes, just go out randomly. You don't have to go to the campaign headquarters even. I've done this before. Just go down. If you live in an apartment building, just knock on doors. You do whatever it is that you can do. But do
you realize that every field organizer and voting targeter in every office is like cringing right now as you give that recommendation?
That's okay. No, that's because they know how to lose. And it's time. See, thank God we've got Alexandria, we've got Rashida, we've got Stacy, we've got Andrew, we've got a whole new crop. And for the people who don't usually vote because you're sick of voting for these people, this is not your grandfather's Democratic ballot. These are new people that are running. People like you, not the old hacks, people like you. And yes, you should go down your street and your apartment building, down your dorm rooms, whatever it is, wherever you are, and knock on doors and get them out there to vote. You have to do this, and you have to trust that the American people agree with us, not the other side. And for the Democratic strategists who are freaking out hearing me say this, you've had a nice run. God bless you. We're taking over now. Thank you.
Just be careful when you're out there knocking on those doors in the apartment building. Michael Moore, thank you very much.
Yes, please.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.